do we have the learning goals, the table? We need to get that stuff out.
Okay.
Here in a minute, yeah.
So let's see and think about the way Fink thinks about his learning goals. Now,
I have notes for this, but I didn't. I gotta look at them.
I try to memorize everything, but like 7 sessions later, you don't really remember what you're talking about in session 2. So, in Fink's taxonomy of significant learning, it kind of describes new concepts for learning, like learning how to learn, leadership and interpersonal skills, ethics, communication skills, tolerance and ability to adapt to change. So these are different than Bloom's. Bloom's is describe, these events that led to this thing. So it's very point blank. So these are more like personal. And again, you considered your situational factors, so you considered your people. Now you're going to consider goals for those people, humans. Fink's taxonomy depends on a particular perspective on learning. He defines learning in terms of change. Now, once again, and I prefaced this when I opened my statement, you've got different theories of learning within different contexts. The psychological theory of learning is different than the educational theory of learning. And right now we're talking about students in education and need to learn. Fink's, I really, out of all the learning theories is something I really, really, really like. And the reason is that I understand how people come to know things, and then I learn strategies that help people come to know things, that I, as a teacher, this sounds kind of control freak, but I can control whether they learn or not. And to me, that's powerful. I mean, naturally, I want them to learn, but Fink really says it good to me. And significant learning requires that there be some kind of lasting change that is important in terms of the learner's life. And he does a really good job there. And again, this kind of challenges our thinking about teaching, including our teaching methods. A lot of times, and me too, probably right now, I'm all wrapped up in my content and not thinking about my people. And so we have to make sure we kind of view from a different door. Yes, sir.
How does this relate to the SLO?
Well, we're getting there. We're getting there. Hold on a minute. That's coming. I hope. If not, ask me after the next couple slides. More effective support for your students, so the design piece becomes student-centered rather than content-centered. And then here's kind of how it relates. Like, application is probably one of your SLOs. I would think that in your student learning outcomes, you have an application one. But the way Fink does it is, how can you grow a person? How can you increase caring about your subject so that they apply it even better than just what you expected from your SLOs? Okay. To clarify, you got to go down. All right. To clarify Fink's definition for significant learning, okay? When a student experiences significant learning, yes, they'll be able to understand and remember your key concepts in terms and relationships. They'll also know how to use the content when they leave your class, and then even better, relate this subject to other subjects. Okay? That's a powerful piece of learning. Powerful. If you can show how your subject relates to the class they have on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock, that's a pretty powerful experience, and the teacher at 2 o'clock will thank you for I mean, that to me prepares them for what they're going to see in the workforce when they get there. Value the subject and learn. They want to keep learning about it. Like that would be my transformational goal. Is that when I teach you, I want you to keep wanting to learn more and more about it. So then we all keep improving our instruction. And then know how to keep on learning about the subject after the course is over. I think this is huge. I wasn't given that opportunity with the instruction that was taught to me. I didn't learn how to keep on learning until I went to graduate school. And then I had to figure it out because at that point it's sink or swim. So, can we empower our students to know how to keep on learning about our subject with some of the learning goals and activities that we design for them? Other things to consider.
Before we move on to the next slide,
Yes.
this, I believe, is particularly important given the future our kids are going to be moving into. When you consider what's going on in AI and the number of jobs that will be either fully incorporating artificial intelligence
Yes.
or partially incorporating artificial intelligence,
Yes.
it's no longer enough just to have the concept knowledge. All of this stuff about learning how to learn, understanding the social implications, and knowing how to keep on learning is what's going to keep these young people relevant.
Yes. Exactly.
That's exactly right.
You couldn't have
We
said
are
that.
preparing these guys for a world we know nothing about.
Yeah.
Well,
That's comforting, isn't it? I agree. It is totally.
studies show that one of the major complaints that businesses and hiring managers have about incoming college freshmen as employees is that they don't know how, it isn't that they don't have the skills for the job, it's that they don't know how to find the skills for the job. They don't know how to research for themselves how to do something. They have to be told, do this, now do that. So if we're teaching them how to find information themselves, then that's one of the major skills that employers wants them to have, and they'll do better and therefore make us do better.
One of the things that impacts that is that we have the care of children. And in the education, public school system, care pretty much helped the kids be disabled.
Yeah.
What it actually did was it handed them everything.
Right.
And so now we've got a generation of students who are coming to college waiting for you to give them everything.
Right.
And so, therefore, we have to go back and reteach how to take care of self,
Right.
and how to do these research things and be inquisitive about learning. Otherwise, they're waiting for somebody to hand them all they need.
It just makes me have a flashback to what my children look like when it's time to eat. They're just waiting. For me to hand them what they need.
Like little birds.
Yeah. Well, mine are more like tigers. So I go like this real quick. All right, so we're ready to get started. So you have this chart. There's a 3-column table that was distributed to you, and we're going to use this over the course. Like we're going to fill out the first 2 columns. Do you remember when I drew those boxes on the board, and I said, here's our progression. So we're going to take care of columns 1 and 2 today. Then we're going to break out, and tomorrow I just looked at the schedule. I don't have it memorized, by the way. It's all just together. And tomorrow we're going to have so much fun, and we're going to fill your toolbox full of tools and active learning activities for you to do with your students. And then we're going to kind of reconvene and fill out that 3rd column later. So, don't lose that piece of paper, okay?
And the learning goals on the left, going back to the question on SLOs, that is completely aligned with the SLOs that you develop for your class. And if you go backward map from the far right to the left, you begin active planning before you teach a course of what you will do, prepare the kids to do it. What will I use to see if they can do it, which is your formative assessment and your responsive assistance right on the spot. and you're doing active learning in class, and then you actually make sure they can all do it.
It's true. And then I'm going to kind of show you, on your table, there's a table copy of learning goals for this workshop. And you remember, like, at the beginning, that had that chart. It's like, I'm not reading you that chart. Well, they're all right there. That's why, there you go. And so here's what your next task is going to be. Oh, so in the learning, you'll write this down. It's just an example. Hold your pencils down. So your learning goals go here, and there are 6 different dimensions. Now remember, we're doing according to FDI. So we may need to adjust. I could probably say that there's not a one of you that has an SLO that addresses the caring aspect of your life. But we care about people. And your content. That's nursing science. Nursing science is caring science. Oh, okay. I don't know that much. But you see what I'm saying? Like, some of these are pretty basic knowledge, application, that sort of thing, are kind of SLO geared, whereas some of the other ones, not quite as much. But can be. All right. So here's what your next task is. You're going to write 2 learning goals using FDI's taxonomy. All right? That means these little guys right here. All righty? And what I want you to do is go ahead and write 1 for the foundation or application level. That's these 1 and 2. And that's more kind of along your normal SLOs you've written before. But then I really want you to write a second one from one of those other domains that apply to your course. Use the following preface by the end. You don't have to write that down, but just finish that sentence when you write these goals. You want to pay attention to your verb, and you want to make it concrete and specific. Now, your table copies also include a great article by Lloyd. Is that his name? Okay. I found this article. Apparently, the United States Air Force can do some really good stuff. But this was probably one of the best hands-on examples of kind of these different types of learning goals that I could find out there. He did a really good job providing examples and thinking about how people learn and that sort of thing. So feel free to use, here's some verbs that we all know about: identify and list and analyze and compare. But the human dimension, kind of check out what they're saying here. Interact with others regarding. Be able to work in teams on. So that's kind of diversifying how we're thinking about what our students are doing in the class versus the student learning outcomes that we turn in. Are there any questions? I'm going to keep that up there. So 2 of FDI's goals. You can do 2 from the upper end, but at least have 1 from the bottom, like 3 through 6. Okay? And I'll walk around and help you raise your hand, whatever you need. Can I read you for a quick second? I do want to clarify the difference between SLOs and what we're doing right now. And thank you, and don't get rid of your SLOs or they're going to run me off this campus. Okay, keep those intact. Keep using those. These aren't replacing the SLOs. Okay? These are a tool for better class design, where SLOs are content-driven. Now we're thinking about student-driven goals, as in how can we help our students grow and be better nurses or business people. Okay? So don't throw them out. Keep those SLOs. All right. So now we're going to focus on factors as to whether the students learned anything or not, correct? And so it's really used for a summative, that's the big final kind of thing, assessment of contact understanding, but it's very limited to are your students thinking at those higher order levels. So that's one way to think about assessment. But the way Fink thinks about assessment is he considers it forward-looking, where you establish clear criteria, and the students are doing more self-assessment. You're not grading everything. They're seeing how they're doing, and you're communicating with them that you feel that way too or not. Now, where Fink and I disagree is his little, what do you call that, acronym for feedback. That L stands for loving, and that's just too cheesy for me. So I put the slash and supportive, because to me that's just, I don't get it. That part has bothered me since I found this model, but I mean, we do need to give feedback, and we do need to be supportive about it. I'm not sure about the love, like that part is part of the line. I don't want to. So, I do want to spend a few minutes, let me get my notes out. I think they did loving because it made a word, and that bothers me a little bit. Okay, so, auditive assessment, the backwards-looking assessment, assessments work solely for the purposes of establishing a quality of work for a grade. That's all it does. But educative assessment is grading that actually contributes to student learning. Forward-looking assessment prompts students, prompts that set up a student response in which they would use learned knowledge in a new situation. So case studies. You know, you've taught them this stuff. How they actually apply it to a new situation or apply it in the workforce. Self-assessment. Have the students grade their own work and evaluate their own work. Well, you set up the criteria, they're all going to make A's. But, you know, allowing them to see where their mistakes are rather than you telling them where their mistakes are. They're going to learn more from that than they are from just getting a paper back. Providing and you want to assess students as often as possible, all along the way, little bitty, you know, just to make sure they're staying with you. And then you want to make sure you provide feedback pretty quickly. That's going to reinforce the fact that A, you care, and B, what they're learning is important to you. So that's kind of his view on assessment. Now, when you're assessing for significant learning experiences, you want to focus on what the learner should be able to do in the future, not what content do they need to know for the test. But how are they going to use this content later? Learners imagine themselves in a situation where people are actually using this knowledge. It's going to stick a lot quicker, or a lot better that way. Create assignments and tests that require judgment or exploration rather than reciting or restating facts, real-life content, and then integrated sets of skills. So the assessment piece can get pretty when you're designing it to incorporate all those things. It takes a lot of work. We're not going to get that done in the time we have here, but we are going to explore some of the options that are out there that you can choose to work on and incorporate. You know, one of the things I also did this summer was convene a work group for the, what's that place called? Post-Secondary Council for Education. And they were talking about online assessments and, you know, how do you verify and identify to make sure that the person taking the test is, you know, that whole SAC thing. And so basically what I did was a whole bunch of research for them and told them what the standard means and here's how to do it. And the research point blank says to online learning, especially, that to authenticate a user, you may want to rethink how you assess them online. Anybody can get paid to come sit down and take a multiple choice test. But if you have a student completing little projects for you all along the way, and then for the final, you're learning their style of who they are through those projects in the online environment. Then your final doesn't need to be necessarily a multiple choice test. Anybody can come. They can create another product for you, and that's a form of authentication, is that you alter your way of assessing them so that they can't necessarily cheat. And so authentic assessments and redesigning them so that they have integrated things they're working with, it can get pretty design heavy. So here's an example of a backward-looking assessment. This is from an art history class. A backward-looking assessment assesses facts about the political influences. This question probably doesn't even apply, but it's an art question that's multiple choice. So, but, so this says you choose and you select. Now, a forward-looking assessment, so here the instructor wants to assess how well students have achieved the learning goal of understanding how politics can influence popular aesthetics. The backward-looking assessment, I ask you a question, you choose the answer. The forward-looking assessment might present students with several unfamiliar pieces of art from before and after the political transition. And then you have them make comparisons. So you get a richer assessment of what they truly know versus a 25% chance they got it right by guess. So just changing up little things like that really makes a powerful statement. All right. So in this particular chart, you can see basic knowledge, exams and quizzes go right there. It's basic knowledge. They got enough. We haven't learned our multiplication tables. There it goes. So that's okay. But then if you want to apply it, what about a case study rather than just an application question? Integration, an analytical essay, these are all just examples. Now, human dimension, that's where you can start bringing in peer evaluation. So if you go to learning goal with a human dimension, here's a possible assessment strategy that would work and fall underneath that taxonomy range. Caring, reflective blogging, lifelong learning, nurturing portfolios are an example of that type of thing. And I do think getting ready to do the assessment piece. So you're going to take a few minutes to analyze the type of assessments that you already do. You probably already have some forward-looking assessments, and that's great. And I'm not saying that you don't, but you want to kind of just take a minute and think. If you do, how do you make it better? How do you make it even more forward? And if you don't, think about what you have and how you can twist it so that it becomes that. Think of at least one forward-looking assessment that aligns with those learning goals that you created. We had a point where we can keep moving forward. Kind of got a good idea of the different types of assessment pieces. So the last thing we have to talk about are the active learning and the teaching and learning activities. But we're not going to fill out that piece yet because I'm getting ready to fill up your toolbox with a whole bunch of these different things. So the rest of this presentation merely is a segue into what holds in your future. We're done with the activity pieces. But according to Fink, holistic active learning incorporates, this isn't limited to, but at least students experiencing things in your class, doing, observing, actual or simulations, rich learning experiences. Gotta get some notes. And a rich learning experience is one that gets at multiple ways of learning and or learning goals simultaneously. So like as an instructor, that's like hitting a mother lode. Like you're knocking two student goals out with one punch. Like that's a powerful learning activity. And think about it. That's one less thing for you to have to grade. 2 goals, 1 grade. Everybody wins. Holistic active learning that supports significant student learning. We've got information ideas. They have to get that information. We're not saying lecture is bad. They have to get that information somehow. But what's the primary source? What are secondary sources that they can go and outsource on their own? And then, is there a way to incorporate in your design so that they're doing things with you and obtaining that information and ideas outside of class? They can read. They may not act like it, but they can. All right? And lastly, and most importantly, and personally, reflective dialogue. I reflect to the point of no return on pretty much every move I make. With this, with my children, like reflection is such a powerful tool. So it forces you to be better the next time you do it. And it's like, I can't even tell you, I like to do some reflection. Plus, that's most of the time when I'm doing it, I'm by myself, so that means nobody's bothering me. Minute papers, learning portfolios, journaling about the subject, your content matter, or about the learning process of it. To me, that's critical. I mean, that's learning how to learn right there if you have to reflect on that particular piece of it. So what's next? So much fun. Like a blast. All right. We're going to fill your toolbox with an interesting morning session tomorrow from the library. Tomorrow? Okay. We're going to try to up your presentation game. Tomorrow we're going to meet in here. I'm going to show you a little bit about the smart boards. We're going to divide into groups all around LRC. And I'm going to run a marathon upstairs and downstairs. Now we got people on each floor to help you so that you can use these wonderful pieces of technology that maybe one day will give me my PhD. My education is on spot. So we're going to learn some active learning strategies and maybe alternative ways to get your lecture across rather than you just standing there talking. And then we're going to take all of that at the end of the week, and everybody's going to apply at least 2. You're getting like 20,000. You're going to take 2, and you're going to apply 2 active learning strategies in the classroom, and we're going to redesign a course to maximize your class time and enhance the learning experience for your students. Meaning, if you teach an NC course, we're going to learn how to use that Moodle shell to help you and to help your students. Okay? And at the end of the day, everybody in this room is going to have their own Moodle shell from here on out to play, to monkey with. It's your own little personal sandbox. You can add stuff and you can delete stuff. You can't get it back if you delete it, but it's your sandbox. You can mess it up. So that's kind of what our goal is at the end of the week, is give you some of these strategies, show you how you can use your Moodle to distribute course resources, to use the grade book, and for students to submit assignments. All right. I asked all gave me in the first session, and I already